Hello my friends, welcome back to my personal channel where we have been discussing the Sleeper Agent book. Hope everybody is doing well. What a nice day it has been here today in Cape Cod. I'm in Brewster, Massachusetts, which is in the middle of Cape Cod, and it's nice to finally see the spring coming back, and the summertime will be here before you know it. And it's really nice out here in the summertime, and I'm just really looking forward to things starting to move forward with this book. Like I have the March 23rd appearance on Coast to Coast AM, one of the most listened to overnight talk shows or radio shows in the country, and so that's really great. And I really look forward to the warm weather, going to the beach. I finally have a girl coming with me to the beach this summer, and getting out on that bike trail every day has been great. And tonight I'm going to present you a little thing on Lyme disease and its co-infections, because there's a lot of confusion about what this actually is, and part of my work in writing the book, The Sleeper Agent, was I was taking a very complex science, the science of immune tolerance, which Eric Traub had discovered. It was my job to kind of take that entire science, that very complex science, and what happened and how he put these weapons together, Lyme disease and their co-infections. My job was to try to make that as explainable and easily understood as I possibly could, but even the way I did it, it's not foolproof. So a lot of times I'm kind of going to have to go over it, and I do encourage everybody to go over the stuff in the book. If you're somebody who has Lyme disease and doesn't really understand the disease all that much, or somebody with chronic disease, I would encourage to read that book probably over and over again. It took me actually about a year to fully grasp what immune tolerance was, and that was even before I had come to Eric Traub's work. So when I came to his work, I already had a very good starting point and understood immune tolerance to a large degree. And then when I started to study his work, it was like I got a very, very good understanding of this immunology. So we're going to start out by saying Lyme disease, or the disease that is called Lyme disease, which is initially a spirochete infection with the spirochete Borrelia burgdorferi. But usually you don't just get Lyme disease. You usually don't just get those spirochetes. You get an entire cocktail of other infections, right? Co-infections. Lyme disease and co-infections. And then, even then, you have more that come on afterwards, like the reactivated latent viruses that are already in the host. There is Lyme disease and its co-infections that comes in with the tick, and then there's also the co-infections that are activated from the inside, like Epstein-Barr virus, human herpes virus 6, and there are others. I'm sure the SV40 comes into play here. Latent polioviruses and things of that nature. Coxella virus. So you get an entire cocktail. And it's a very complex condition because you have so many overlapping diseases at one time. So we'll start out with talking about Lyme disease. Lyme disease is the spirochete Borrelia burgdorferi. And so when I say that most of the chronic disease from the chronic Lyme disease Most of that, a large portion of it anyway, is viral. I'm not saying that Lyme disease is a virus. I'm saying the complex condition that is activated by those spirochetes, the reactivated Epstein-Barr virus, human herpes virus 6, and all the other reactivated latent viruses that you have already within you, those are like a big portion of all of the systemic health complaints that you will experience. A lot of that is from the viruses that are reactivated from the inside. Now, Borrelia burgdorferi, and like other spirochetes, they like to go for the brain and the lymph nodes. Spirochetes like to take to the brain and lymph nodes, the central nervous system. So you get a tick bite, right? Let's say you pull a black-legged tick off of you, and you get the bullseye rash. So you have the Lyme disease, but then you'll get a number of co-infections that come in with the tick, like Babesia. So that's one of them. Babesiosis is one of the Lyme disease co-infections, and that is a blood parasite. It's much like malaria. It used to be called pyroplasma, and I believe this may have even been an animal disease adapted to man, like Thaleria parva. But it was formally classified as pyroplasma. So Babesia microti is the name of that co-infection. That's the first one that people commonly get. The second one is Bartonella. Bartonella is a really nasty one, and Bartonella, it's been demonstrated that ticks can transmit Bartonella, even though there's a big attempt by the ALDF, or the American Lyme Disease Foundation, to say that there's no evidence that Bartonella is being transmitted by ticks, but it can be. And I would also say that Bartonella can also happen as a secondary opportunistic infection from when the immune system has been thrown into disarray. It can happen being transmitted by the tick, and it can happen as an opportunistic infection that you get even if it wasn't transmitted through the tick. It can happen in both instances, and Bartonella has the really nasty endotoxin that makes you feel horrible. So a lot of people will get the Bartonella co-infection. Then what you have are various Rickettsia, like Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which is Rickettsia rickettsii, Rickettsia parkeri, Rickettsia philippii, which is Pacific Coast tick fever, and then you have Rickettsia helvetica, which may or may not be in these ticks, and that's the one that Chris Newby brings all that attention to about the Swiss agent, when in and of itself it's really not that important. It's just one of many. And she titles an entire chapter "The Smoking Gun." It's like the height of her book, bringing all this attention to the Swiss fever, to the Swiss agent, like it's a huge deal, and it's really not. We've always known, and it doesn't bring us really any new information. We've always known that when you get Lyme disease, you don't just get Lyme disease. You get a whole cocktail of infections. And a Rickettsia, it's just another Rickettsia. There are many different Rickettsia and Rickettsia-like co-infections. But in and of itself, the Swiss agent really isn't that important. If anything, I would talk about the Leptospira co-infection. But again, it's just a mix. It's just one of many. Or even the Ehrlichiosis. The Ehrlichia co-infections are much worse than the Rickettsia, than the Swiss agent Rickettsia. So I just kind of feel like that entire thing was a complete diversion. The Swiss agent, complete diversion. There's really nothing special about it. It probably cross-reacts, like the antigens probably cross-react with other Rickettsia that are in the tick co-infections, but in and of itself, it's really not that important. So you get all these different Rickettsia co-infections. Then you have, like I was saying, the Ehrlichia and Anaplasma. So Ehrlichiosis is the disease that Ehrlichia pathogens, that it's a Rickettsia-like bacteria, and you had human monocytic Ehrlichiosis, and you have human granulocytic Anaplasmosis, and I believe human granulocytic Ehrlichiosis has been reclassed as human granulocytic Anaplasmosis. Just a few different names. Those are some really nasty ones. And we know that Eric Traub was taught about the Ehrlichiosis. We know he was taught about all the different kinds of Rickettsiosis and the Bartonella as well. In 1939, the same year that he got that avian spirochete. So another co-infection that I haven't heard really anybody talking about, and really I don't even think they test for it in the normal alternative health circles and like the Lyme literate doctors. I don't think they test for it either, but it's Leptospira. It's a spirochete. It's a really nasty immunosuppressive spirochete, and it's actually transmitted in water. It can be transmitted through water. But I know that the ticks can also transmit Leptospira, and it's one of those spirochetes that Reams was working on, and they were making a serum for Val's disease, which is Leptospira cryptotyphosa. Well, it produces a disease called Val's disease, and they were making a serum for that, and they were also making a serum for multiple sclerosis. And over in Germany, they always looked at multiple sclerosis as though it was a spirochete etiology. So you've got those. Those are all the co-infections that you're going to get in the tick, along with the Borrelia spirochete, that is Lyme disease. You also have things like Mycoplasma. You have some viral diseases like Colorado tick fever, Powassan virus, which is a tick encephalitis virus. Probably came over from Russia. Q fever, which is Coxella burnetii. That's one of the co-infections that a lot of people in the West get, along with Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And Tularemia. I know I had a girl that I was dating that I had Tularemia, and that's a nasty one too. Really nasty one. There's also a few different strains of Borrelia that are classified as tick-borne relapsing fever, that is aside from Borrelia burgdorferi. And there's also a tick paralysis that has been listed, and that's actually from some kind of toxin that is secreted by the actual tick. And then another unusual disease that has been surfacing in the prior years has been this alpha-gal syndrome, where people seem to develop allergies to red meats. That's another one. But that's basically the list of co-infections that come in with the tick. So you have those. And so what Eric Traub had noticed, or what his mentor, Carl Beller, had taught him in 1939, was that they were looking at a dog with a complex disease from this mix of infections. It had, I believe it had Ehrlichiosis, Bartonella, it had Babesia, and a parasitic disease, Leishmaniasis, which basically, if he just swapped that out with Borrelia burgdorferi, that's exactly what you'd have today. All of those co-infections he was studying in 1939, and it was the same year that he grabbed the avian spirochete that he weaponized into Borrelia burgdorferi. Now so when you get that tick bite, right, you get all of those, you get a variation of all of those that I just discussed, usually many different combinations of that. And so you get that first, right? And then as it throws your immune system into disarray, which is usually within the span of 2 weeks, around 14 days, then your immune system gets like switched off, thrown into disarray, but you could also kind of say almost like switched off. And at that point, 14 days later, is when you get the reactivation of latent viruses. So you get the co-infections of Epstein-Barr virus, you get the co-infections of human herpes virus 6, which is an encephalitis virus, or encephalitis herpes virus. Most people are just familiar with the herpes virus from the STD, which is number 2. But there's 8 known human herpes viruses, and chickenpox is like number 3, which is varicella zoster virus. Then you have, herpes simplex is number 1. Epstein-Barr virus is number 4. Then you have cytomegalovirus is number 5, and then you have human herpes virus 6, which is the encephalitis one that I talked about. And then you have 7 is, I forget what that one is called, but it leaves like these rashes on you. And then number 8 is the Kaposi's sarcoma related herpes virus, number 8. So different people have different variations. Some people, like, it seems that girls often have the cytomegalovirus. One of the ones that is most common, I would say, is the EBV, Epstein-Barr virus. And of course, that is the agent that causes mononucleosis, infectious mononucleosis. It's not the only it's not the only pathogen that causes mononucleosis, but it's one of them. And most of the time, when somebody has mono, it's usually the Epstein-Barr virus. So, another common trait of this complex disease is that you will get a relapsing and remitting state of disease. So you'll get really sick for quite a while, maybe a few months at a time, and then it'll taper off. You'll start feeling better, and you'll start feeling better, and then it'll relapse again, and you get sick for a while, then it'll start to taper off, you'll start feeling better, and so it does this up and down, up and down, up and down thing. Some people deal with that for life. But then there's also some people who seem to get really sick for a number of years, and then it starts to taper off and they don't get those nasty relapses anymore. I mean, knock on wood, I haven't been getting sick like that in the last few years. But in the first, like, from 2016 to like 2020, I was getting really sick often, and it was a really nasty couple of years. Some days, oh my God, I just felt like it was brutal. It was brutal. But it seems that the last 2 years have been going much, much better. And it's kind of tapered off, because it's basically like your immune system gets whacked, like, really hard. And you seem to get sick for a number of years. And then some people, it just, you slowly start to bounce back. Although I know a lot of people who have treated it really hard and got much, much sicker from trying to constantly treat it. And I know a lot of people who made themselves much, much sicker taking tons of antibiotics. And that's basically, a lot of time, it doesn't seem like the antibiotics work at all. I mean, some people can kill off a lot of the Mycoplasma and feel better for a number of years, but it seems to always come back. So, the large percentage of girls that I've talked to who tried treating it really hard with antibiotics made themselves sicker. So it's worth noting. And I think that's about it for this video. I just kind of wanted to go over, this is what Lyme disease generally looks like. It can happen in basically infinite variations of what I described. And some might even say that no two will look exactly the same. So that's another thing that makes this a very complicated disease, is that doctors in the medical system like to be able to classify things into specific boxes, and with this it completely obliterates it. So, but see, this is generally the immune tolerance phenomenon. This is generally what happens when it's induced just using antigens, never mind having the spirochetes and all those other ones. There are other ways of bringing on immune tolerance just with antigens that are given in shots. And so that's why a lot of people, there's been so many people that I've known who have got that chronic Lyme-like outcome after getting routine shots of all kinds, even though they didn't have spirochetes. But the common thread is they always get those reactivated viruses. So the reactivated viruses can happen whether you're injecting antigen or whether it's being delivered into you via tick. And so I'm glad I made a video tonight. I've been trying to get this going, and I had all of these technical problems, having all these issues with like, I was recording videos and like the screen would go purple and green and stuff, and I was having all these troubles. Hopefully I won't this time, but I'm glad I finally recorded this, because I've been meaning to do it for a while, and I'm gonna try to continue doing videos more regularly. I've been kind of busy with other matters, but I've got a lot of good interviews coming too, and I'm gonna be on Coast to Coast AM on March 23rd. Probably, that's like an overnight show. So in the East Coast, it'll be like 1 to 3 in the morning or something like that, and 10 to midnight Pacific time, something like that. Or it's midnight to 3 a.m. Eastern time. I don't know, but I will let you know the specifics when I know. And with that said, everybody, take care of yourself. Be yourself, build yourself, and I will see you on the other side.